Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct right here from the SHR Media Network. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat. It's great to see you back. Tonight is Thursday, June 27th, the year of our Lord 2019. Angel is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them. The lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, indicating that you can you can listen to this show and chat at shrmedia.com. You can watch the show on Big Sarge Media, the Big Sarge Media Facebook page, the SHR Media Facebook page, and the SHR Media YouTube channel. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All we ask is that you flush the toilet, jiggle the handle, and don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, we have investigator, paranormal investigator, researcher, Bigfoot investigator, Alan Thomas. All things paranormal and all things unexplained. He's going to be here for the first hour. Second hour, well, depending on what we encounter in the first hour. In the second hour, if things don't continue from the paranormal UFO type bent, we're going to go into politics, and have I got some insane and crazy audio bits for you. And it's going to be a great 2 hours. But first, the act you've known for all these years, Alan Thomas. Are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here, man. It's good to be here.
It is great for you to be here. You've been kind enough to say that you're going to be on for the entire 3 hours. 2 hours. I just expanded my show an hour and I didn't even know it. But you're going to be here for the entire 2 hours. The first hour, at least, we're going to do a lot of paranormal, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, UFO type stuff. And I want to welcome back a man who's been here. I counted him. You've been here on 7 prior occasions. Each appearance was unique and stellar. And tonight we're going to be talking to none other than Alan Thomas. Like I said, he's a Sasquatch hunter, an investigator, and a researcher. He's well-versed in all things unexplained and UFOs and the paranormal. We talked about a half hour ago, so I could set him up and let him know what some of the stories that I've got. So in the first hour, Alan Thomas is going to be talking about those things. And here's the deal. Tonight, we'd like to hear from you as well. Now, in the second hour, Alan will still be here with me. We're going to shift gears a little bit and get back into politics. So first, though, officially, I'd like to welcome you back to the saloon. Alan Thomas, love you, man, and it's great to see you here.
Man, love you back, BZ. And I had no idea it was that many times. But every one of them, to me, was special.
Yeah, because we find out so much new and cool stuff about you. And you and I, before you took a recent trip, you and I had been discussing some things back and forth on Facebook. So I know you've got some great stories to tell. But before we get into those things and some of the things that have occurred to you recently, Alan, I'd like to everybody know that the phone lines are open. And as we discuss these things, if it's unexplained, if it's paranormal, if it involves Bigfoot, if it involves UFOs, the phone lines are open, 209-284-3210, 209-284-3210. If you have had an unexplained event occur to you, give us a call. Call in, to weigh in. You don't want to use your name? No problem. No big deal. So Alan and I, like I say, we have been chatting back and forth on Facebook. And, dang it. All right, stop. I am terribly remiss. I apologize, Alan Thomas. I normally do this up front. Alan Thomas, tell us where you can be found on social media and also about your show and where your show can be found.
I'm currently, all I got so far is YouTube. And then I have a page also on Facebook, same name, Squatch Zone. And that's it, and I've been out. I mean, if they just type Squatch Zone in a search, you can find me real easy.
Alan he's reticent, he's coy, he's demure, but you need to go to the YouTube page. He has his own YouTube channel. And it's going to be called, so all you need to do is go to YouTube itself. In the search field above, just type in Squatch Zone. But Alan's being very humble. He has 8,200 subscribers to his show. That's a hell of a lot of people that watch him. His stuff is all about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, paranormal, all sorts of things that... And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, Alan Thomas, when I say that you live kind of in the general Fresno area. And that Fresno itself is a hotbed of crazy, unexplained phenomena, is it not?
Yeah, it is. And getting crazier. It's just out of this world.
Literally.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of stories. Let me go back. For those of you who have not met Alan before on the air, Alan Thomas, you have had, I would say, a unique and eventful life. But I've always kind of had this question for you. Would you say that a life led like yours may tend to lend itself to various unexplained events, and that you and folks kind of like you may be more open and susceptible, or I should say the proper word would be receptive to unexplained experiences than others? And I'm going somewhere. Alan Thomas has had some events that occurred in his life that are beyond the pale. And what I mean by that is, I'll be frank, you've died on the operating table, what, twice, Alan Thomas?
Twice. Yeah, twice. Yeah, and, I guess, I come from a family that are, I don't know what you would call it, some people call it psychic, and our family kind of has that kind of gift. And I thought I always did, but I pushed it away and I didn't really use it. But after coming back from dying, now it's not as hard. I mean, it's harder. I can't turn it off now. And now it's always on. And it's interesting because I almost became a magnet to these things. They just show up. And I mean, even though I was having things happen way before, it really is now off the hook. So much so that a lot of other investigators like to have me around because it seems like things happen when I'm there.
So in the paranormal investigative Bigfoot, Sasquatch, UFO world, you are, and you took the word right out of my mouth, because the other thing I was going to say is, I was going to ask you is, like, in other words, are there people who may be just unexplained type magnets? That's the exact same word that I was going to use, where things just seem to find them, not necessarily the other way around. And you just, before I even asked that question, you said, yep, that's me. I'm the magnet.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I was just agreeing.
We talked about this earlier, And before we get into some of the stuff that you've done recently, you've taken a trip, and we'll get into the drone and the trip and some of the weird things that you've been experiencing. I can remember the last time we spoke that you were essentially telling me that the unexplained world is ratcheting and cranking things way up. And we had a little bit of a discussion about that. In other words, the paranormal, UFO, Sasquatch, unexplained world is really cranking things up. So, and you also said Fresno, it's off the hook. So why might that be, Alan Thomas?
Well, I mean, a lot of people might not agree with me on this point because it has a religious connotation, or, you know, it's related. And we're in the end days. That's why. And it's getting good. I mean, we're seeing it in politics. We're seeing it in music and movies, and we're seeing the Navy releasing UFO footage.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I mean, it's as... And when I said it was off the hook last time, it went off the chart. I mean, it's making new ground. The chart is getting bigger, and it's actually it's an exciting time to be alive. I mean, nobody lived in times like we live in now, ever.
Well, the Chinese said, may you live in interesting times, and it would certainly seem that those times are right now. Or is it such that there are more people that are exposed to the unexplained, to include UFOs, various phenomena, etc., Bigfoot, that there are more people cognizant of what's going around, and that they, like you, may be larger magnets? Or is there something larger, even bigger than that in the scheme?
I think it's bigger than that, because it's worldwide phenomenon. I mean, it probably always was, and that's where we got, you know, as a kid, I mean, a lot of people might not know what I'm talking about, but like they had, I can't remember, he had an ox named Blue. I can't remember what his name was, but he was like a giant.
Paul Bunyan?
Yeah, Paul Bunyan. But they have stories of that kind of thing all around the world. And also dragons, you know, everywhere you go, South America, anywhere in Asia, all around, there's dragons. In Britain, the king was the dragon slayer. I mean, so we have these things all through history, and they kind of went away to where, and I don't know where they went, but they just weren't, it wasn't prominent now, and they became fables and stuff like that, and myth and legend. Well, now the myth and legend and fables are all coming back now, and we're starting to see this stuff happening, like the Ancient Aliens show. You know, they call it Ancient Aliens. Well, what about today's aliens? They're all over the place. I mean, they're real prominent. And I mean, so much so the Navy's they're going to have to talk about it, because it's just happening everywhere, and people they're not falling for, you know, swamp gas and stuff like that.
It's becoming mainstreamed, I'd say. It seems like, this is interesting. I'm going to have to give props where props are due. My wife made an observation the other day. She said there seems to be a push, kind of a mainstreaming, if you will, of two unusual or unexplained categories, UFOs and Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And she observed that, you know what, you're seeing a lot more of both of these things on television, on the media, the internet, on cable shows, on print, and even on commercials. And we're being much more bombarded by things involving UFOs, Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch. So she said, to her, it seems like this is a clear attempt to mainstream these two types of things. Any thoughts on that, Alan Thomas?
I believe they have to. Recently, in the recent years, that now, like I've been doing this 30 years, since around 1987. So really, it's a little over 30 years. And finding the Bigfoots and, researching them, it was really difficult. You had to go real far. Well, now it seems like the populations of them are huge, ginormous. They're so much so they're into the valley, in the Central Valley. They're following the rivers and things like that. I mean, I was just talking to a guy the other day. We had been out at his house 2 years ago. There was Bigfoot running around in the city. The river runs in through the city, and these neighborhoods were having the Bigfoot going through their garbage, almost like bears, running across their rooftops and stuff. And they thought it was escaped monkeys.
Holy crap.
And it was scaring everybody. And I ran into him just the other day, and he told me that he showed me some pictures on his phone. I need to go out there again and follow through with this, because there was baby footprints in his backyard.
Wow.
And, he lives right next to, there's the river, the Kings River, and I have a lot of video and stuff like that on my YouTube about, of that area, because it's a hot spot, but it runs all along from way high in the mountains all the way. The river goes out into the valley. All along that river is nothing but Bigfoot reports everywhere. And I've come across baby footprints, but very, very rare. Well, now he's finding them all the time. And then the neighbors he's seeing the babies running across the rooftops, across, his neighbors' rooftops, and they see it too. So I can't wait to go and I don't know the whole story, but I'll have to do a show and come back and talk about this when I get more information.
That would be wonderful. And that you mentioned that, and I told you this last year, it was late last year, about my actually viewing what I thought was a young Sasquatch. You and I spoke about this.
Yeah.
And my story is such that I was driving back from Mendocino, from the ocean, on Highway 20. And on Highway 20, that parallels Clear Lake. And Clear Lake, for those of you who don't know, it's been devastated by a lot of wildfires and whatnot. But it's a little mountainous, not necessarily foot-hilly, but there are some hills surrounding it, some fairly decent trees, and it's bordering, I think it borders Mendocino County. When you start to get to Mendocino County, you're talking big trees, elevation, forest, an actual forest condition. So this is during the day. I'm driving by, and there are a couple of docks. Fishing is very popular on Clear Lake. And there are a number of docks, and I could have sworn that I saw, smaller than a human, something that made me stop, slam on the brakes. I almost launched my wife through the windshield of the Kraut car, made a U-turn, came back, couldn't find it, but I saw what I believed to be sort of an amberish orange looking young Sasquatch pulling itself up out of a ladder out of the lake itself onto one of the docks. And it looked like hair. There is and all uniform, one color, it wasn't like something like a human wearing pants or shorts or a shirt. All of it was hair. All of it was drenched. It was all running horizontally like it was just getting out of the water, which it was. And you and I spoke about that, and I kind of tend to believe that it was human-like, but I never saw a human that hairy before. That color, I went to go back. I didn't make it back for about another 60 seconds or 2 minutes. Whatever it did, wherever it went, it was gone. But I believe I saw something not humanoid. Well, humanoid in nature, not a human. and possibly a Sasquatch. So, and that's during the day.
I'm sure of it.
That's during the
I'm
day.
Sure of it. Yeah.
I just.
I'm sure of it. I've done a whole bunch of research after we talked about that area, hotspot, as about as hot spot as you can get in California. That lake, Clear Lake.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, there's sightings. It's off the hook, and even still today, people are seeing them all over the place, over there, swimming and everything.
Okay. That was a question that I had. Was, unlike Siamese cats don't like to be thrown in the toilet, will a Sasquatch swim in a lake? And apparently, well, yes, they will.
I just got 2 reports. I have some friends that work for the power companies, and one of them is Southern California Edison. And these 2 guys, they kind of own, the waterways because of all the power plants, and they have what do you call them, hydro plants all up and down the rivers and creeks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all over the place up there. And then the dams for the lakes, they control it because there's generators inside the dams. Well, they're always out there, and they've seen one run and jump in the water. I guess it was running from people, get away from people. And they were at a different angle, and they saw it jam and run into the lake and swim away. They said it swam for a little while, then it went under the water, and they never saw it come up. So we don't know how far they can go or hold their breath or anything like that. But they never seen it come up.
So essentially what I was saying earlier and what you were verifying is that, at least in your experience, more than any other time, the Bigfoot Sasquatch is being more readily seen than at any other time in your experience. Would that be accurate? Yeah, it would. And they're surprising me with new kind of things that I've never experienced in all my years. They've been doing some stuff that is new to me and really real paranormal. Except they make calls like kitten calls, and they do it to lure people out, like young children and women. They'll make like a kitten call. They can make owl calls. I'm almost positive they were driving us crazy with owl calls this last weekend. Okay, and there might have been an owl in there with them, but I know there was not that many owls. It was crazy. Maybe that's a good time to do this. I was corresponding back and forth with you on Facebook about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And at that point I said, hey, Alan, it'd be great to have you back on the show. And you said, okay, there's a lot of crazy stuff has happened. I can talk to you for a little bit, but I'm going to be going on a trip this weekend. And then you did. You have a drone. There are some drone stories and whatnot. So you went out this weekend. You said things kind of went off the hook. So let's start there. When you went this past weekend, what did you experience, and or did you bring the drone? Or first tell us, you had some weird experiences just with your drone itself. Yeah, it was I kind of have to set that up for them to understand how weird it is. It's weird for a drone to disconnect. But because it really started the night before. And before we went to bed, we set up motion sensors around the tent, all the way around. Okay. And then it has an alarm in the tent. Each motion has a beep. So if it's motion 1, it beeps once, and there's 4 of them, so the 4th one beeps 4 times. That way when you set it up, this one's 1, 2, 3, 4 around the tent, you know which direction that something is moving around the tent by the number of beeps. And then I did an experiment, and because Bigfoot doesn't like light, I bought a solar light. The kind, it's just a little small solar
light that has a motion on it, so a motion detector. So if somebody walks by, it'll turn on for a few minutes, and then it'll turn off. And I thought I would give that a try and see if they could figure that out. And then we had the microphone set up through the headset, but we forgot the iRig so that we could record onto the phone. So we decided we're just going to listen. Well, things started getting crazy. There was something out there. It opened the ice chest. You could hear it walking around. It was grabbing the microphone, the windscreen on the microphone, and it was, I don't know if anybody knows, but when you grab a microphone, it kind of makes a kind of noise.
Right.
And it kept doing that, and then you could hear it walking back and forth. It moved everything around on the table, and the light wouldn't go off. The light came on, but it wouldn't go off. It stayed on all night, and we thought it malfunctioned. It works now, though. Just that night, it didn't work. So we're listening to this. We're actually peeking out the tent because the light is on, and we're peeking out the tent expecting to see something. We don't see anything. And we looked several times. Now, this is the part that gets really weird.
Okay.
Now, we're both laying. We decided we were going to get in bed, and there wasn't much else we could do, so we just put the headphones on, and we're listening. I don't think I listened longer than 5 minutes, and I was asleep. And believe me, if something's, moving around outside and moving things and opening the ice chest and messing with everything, I'm not going to go to sleep. And I realized that my buddy went to sleep too. At the same time, in the morning, we realized we both went to sleep at the same time. And when we woke up, what woke me up was crows. These two crows, or one crow, it sounded like two, sounded like they were right on top of the tent, and they were crowing like crazy. It was almost annoying. I woke up yelling at them, like, shut up,
Okay.
And then I realized the sun was up already and lighting the tent up, and I thought, what? Wait a minute. I always wake up. I get up. I'm the guy that gets up before the sun actually, before sunrise. So it'll be light outside, but no sun yet. It hasn't come over the horizon. And here it is, 2 hours past that, and the sun has got everything lit up. And I'm like, I got to go. I got to get out of the tent. I got to go. That's why I usually wake up early. I got to go. Well, as we're moving towards the tent door, then the motion that's right next to the tent door starts going off, and that would be number one. So it's beeping. So immediately, we unzip the tent, we jump out, and there's nothing. No crows, no anything to even make the motion sensor go off. And we're standing there scratching our head, like, what in the world? So that was when I thought, okay, the day before, as we were setting up, we got the tent set up, and we were putting our beds together and setting up the equipment. A tree fell. And I thought, wow, whoever hears a tree fall, that was so awesome,
Close by?
Yeah, like 50 yards away. So then 20, 30 minutes later, we hear another one going down, and I happen to turn, and I watched that one go down in the same area, like 30 feet away from the other one. And an hour later, another one went down, but I was not in the position to go to look at it. It was getting dark too. So 3 trees fell in probably a 30-yard, area. And I thought that was weird. 3 trees might be falling. I expect them to fall all around. If they're falling, you would hear them all around the place. But 3 falling right in the same general area, and then me seeing one too, that really was, I was blown away.
Okay, is that something that a Sasquatch would do, or something that you've known Sasquatches to do before? And tell you what, I'll take that answer when we come back, because it's the bottom of the hour. I got to take a break. When we come back, we're talking to Alan Thomas, Sasquatch, paranormal UFO investigator. Dude knows everything about unexplained. His focus these days primarily is on Bigfoot and Sasquatch. So we're going to have him tell us more about his trip this past weekend and some of the weird things that were going on. I think he'll probably talk to us about knocking. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're talking to Alan Thomas. I'm BZ, the Bloviating Zeppelin, and you're listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network, and also live streaming, simulcasting on Big Sarge Media. Thanks, Big Sarge.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic, concealed carry, and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com, go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific, every Wednesday, live and direct on the SHR Media Network, shrmedia.com. Be there.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way, with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. We're talking to Alan Thomas, Sasquatch, Bigfoot investigator, paranormal investigator, researcher, hunter, ufologist. How do you say that? UFOologist or ufologist or ufologist?
Ufologist.
Ufologist. You follow me, folks. You follow me on Twitter at BZEP. See, boy, that was a smooth segue right there. Follow me on Twitter at BZEP. You can go to my page at Biff Zeppi and follow me there on Facebook. You can follow the show just for the heck of it, because maybe you want to. Maybe that's where you're listening right now. Make sure you follow Big Sarge on Big Sarge Media on his Facebook page. Also, this is very important. Now, Alan Thomas, who we've been speaking to for the first half hour, and we will continue for the rest of the show, has his own YouTube channel. So go to YouTube, quick like a bunny. Go ahead and go there right now. And then when you see that field at the top where it says search, put in Squatch Zone. When you get to the Squatch Zone, that is Alan Thomas's video library and his archive of all the videos that he's made. 8,200 subscribers. Click on that link right there for notifications. Make sure you subscribe to his channel. And I like Alan Thomas a lot. Incredible dude. And again, that's why he's here tonight. He was talking about going in the field this past weekend and some of the interesting things that he'd seen and experienced. And as we were last speaking, 3 trees fell in the area. And my question to him was, before the break, is this something that a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot is known to do, push down trees?
Yes. They push down trees all the time. In fact, you know how, I know it's that way where you're at right now, too. There's dead trees all over the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
And the trees are falling down on their own, too. And it might be very dangerous for people in the woods if they're in areas where there's a lot of dead trees. But the dead trees usually get pushed over by the wind. They don't just fall down, like maybe 2 of them might fall down if one hits another one. But I've been in the woods forever, and I never seen or heard a tree fall down until just the other day. And then the slope of the hill made it where I could see the top, or from mid tree I could see the tree go down, but I couldn't see lower than that to see if something was pushing it down. But I thought I would pull that drone out at around, I think it was about 6:30, 7 in the morning, and I set the drone up, and I have a little landing pad, and these drones are really cool, at least these professional ones. I have a very professional with a good camera, 4K, gimbal on it. It locks in the GPS, so it'll sit still in the 20-mile-an-hour wind. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
That is astounding. That is way cool.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be steady the drone will be fighting the wind, and buffeting and stuff like that. But the gimbal that holds the camera will be steady as a rock. You couldn't even tell the wind is blowing. It's amazing. And it locks in with GPS, so it could have, 14 satellites. So what it does is when you take off, it'll lift up about 3 or 4 feet.
Okay.
And it has a bottom camera and sensors all around it so it doesn't run into anything. The only place it doesn't have a sensor is on the top of it. But on the bottom and all the way around, it has sensors, and it'll lift off, take a picture of the landing pad, calculate all the GPS coordinates, and then that will be its home. You can, if anything you run into trouble, you just hit go home, and it'll fly right back over there and land in that spot.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. I never had to do it though. I always fly it back and land it in the spot, on the landing pad. Well, I sent that thing up, and I sent it up about. I didn't want to hit any trees, and the trees are about 150 feet tall, so I was about 175 feet up, and I sent it over only about 50 yards. I mean, not far. This thing will fly 4 miles. Okay, 4 miles out and back. And so 50 yards is nothing. I could still see it, with my eyes. I had still eye contact with it, but I was looking through the monitor, so that I could see what it was seeing.
Right.
And I was trying to find those trees in the area where it went down, and I was moving it around there, and all of a sudden it lost connection. But I could still see the video. And then it just sat there. Okay, so nothing at that point was controlling it. It just was sitting still about 175 feet up, 50 yards away, or 50 to 75 yards. I guess I moved it. I think it was about 75 yards. And I couldn't get the signal back. And I could still see the video, but I could not control it. And I was starting to freak out, like, oh no,
because
I'm going to lose this thing,
Oh yeah, that's not a cheap drone, folks. It's in, let's just say it's in the 4-digit category of cost.
Yeah. And then all the other stuff with it, it puts it in there. I'll just say around $1,500 flying around up there, like a good motorcycle, something like that. So I start heading towards it, thinking if I could get close to it, that it'll connect back to the controller. And I got almost right under it, and all of a sudden it started flying. It took off, and it started flying away from me, and it made like a V pattern. And I was watching the camera, and I don't know what it was doing. And it all of a sudden, it went up another, 85 feet in altitude. It put it a little over 200 feet up, maybe 230 feet, something like that.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, the controller, it has a voice on it. When the battery's low or anything starts happening, like it didn't tell me it disconnected though, but all of a sudden it says, going home. It said it was going home, and all of a sudden the drone, and I was thinking, oh no, it's going to crash into a tree. I mean, there's trees everywhere, but it went up high enough to where it didn't run into anything, and it flew right back all by itself and landed right on the landing pad and shut itself down. And I thought, okay, that's it. I'm not flying it there anymore.
Yeah, because you want to make sure that, for your $1,500 plus investment, that it doesn't magically go drifting off somewhere. There's a question in chat from Simone who said, Alan Thomas, what about infrasound? Is Bigfoot or Sasquatch known to utilize infrasound in some fashion, and that may be a potential way that they interfered with the drone?
They do use infrasound, and one of our guys on our, that go with us has a pacemaker, and he thinks they can see through the tent. So, and I call the tent a sack lunch.
Yes, you have before.
So he's sleeping in his sack lunch, and he kept saying that they were hitting him and it was messing up his heart. So he started putting tarps over his tent and it stopped. So they couldn't see through the tarp.
She also said in Facebook, or excuse me, in chat here, she said infrasound can mess with your internal organs as well.
Yeah.
None of that I was aware of.
Yeah, well, it was messing with his heart. I don't know what, see, like the night before we fell asleep. I don't know what happened. That's the second time we lost time in that area too. We were driving down in there one day a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden we were waking up and we were driving, the road ended. It's a dead end road. And all of a sudden the branches were hitting the trees and the windshield. And, I yelled out, "Hey, where are we?" And it woke everybody up. And we were off the road. We had to back up a half a mile because there was no place to turn around. And we don't know what happened. That all I remember is the door locks in the truck went chunk, chunk, all by themselves. And I remember, thinking, wow, that was weird. And the driver said, "Hey, get your arm off the door lock." That's the last thing I remember. And next thing I remember is the branches hitting the windshield. So, and then this time we fell asleep, and it was wild. That was the first weekend. The second weekend was just as wild,
Well,
it was off the chart.
Let me ask you this, Alan Thomas. And folks, we're talking to Alan Thomas. He's a Sasquatch and Bigfoot investigator, ufologist, all things paranormal and unexplained. When I hear of lost time, and it seems like you lost time in that tent, and all of a sudden you woke up and the birds are chirping and it's, you woke up. I associate lost time with abductions or something like that. Was this something that you thought was associated somehow with that? Was it in your mind because of that? Was it more associated with literal disappearance? Or do you think it was more associated with the events in that area with the Sasquatch?
I don't know, because we caught because of the lost time, when we were coming down in the first day, we both put our cameras on video and then took note of the time, and then we videotaped all the way down to the camp area, which is about 3 miles.
Okay.
My camera kept shutting off. His camera recorded all the way down. But we caught some kind of weird shadow, alien, reptilian-looking thing as we got to the camp. And
okay.
We tried to debunk it when we went this last weekend. We thought it was just a shadow.
Was that near the stump? Is that what you were talking about earlier to me about the stump or something like that?
Yeah, and I actually got a little bit of video of it, and it looks like it's actually morphing into the stump. But it actually, when the video first caught it, it was looking at us. You could see the eyes and the mouth and the body, the legs, the arms, everything. And then all of a sudden it turned into like a shadow, and it went into the stump and just disappeared.
Okay, I'm looking at a photograph that you sent me on Facebook, and I'm going to take a photograph of that, and I'm going to show it to everybody in the camera. I'm going to change cameras here just for a second so I can get a little bit closer to this. This is the photo. Oh, shoot. Here we go. All right. This is the photograph. If you're watching on video, this is the photograph that Alan Thomas sent. It's a little blurry, but I can distinctly make out a form there. I can make out a head. I can make out a relatively thin neck. I can make out a torso, perhaps legs, knees, etc. So this is human in appearance. And it's, let's see, there's another one that I'm going to take a photograph of that's...
When we think whatever that is is what was really messing with us.
Oh, okay. Not the Sasquatch.
Right. Even though there was Sasquatch there, that was there too. And that's what we couldn't see. We think that's what was actually setting off the motions and, you know, messing with everything on the table and opening the ice chest. And we couldn't see it when we looked out the tent.
Okay.
Even in the morning when the motion was going off, we couldn't see it at all.
Okay, here's the second photograph that Alan sent me. With luck, the camera's not focusing very clearly, and I think it's because the screen, my phone screen, is reflective. So again, in this other photograph, and if you can kind of explain the photograph a little bit, to me it looks, you can again see what appears to be a humanoid type form, a head, a neck, a torso, perhaps knees or legs, and then it also looks like there are branches or trees or vegetation around it. Is that accurate, Alan Thomas?
Yeah, even in front of it, you can see little branches in front of it.
Yes.
And it disappeared. It actually, like, it looked like the stump swallowed it. And then we went back the next weekend, this last weekend, and I knew I was going to debunk it. It was just a shadow, and that's it. You know, I knew I was going to debunk it. And when I went back, I couldn't debunk it. And I mean, there was something there that kind of resembled it, but it didn't have the head and the neck and all that. I mean, it was just kind of after it was, when it was morphing into the stump, we started to see more of the stump, and we were looking at that, and it was like, oh my gosh, you know, what was it? And it has like an aura around its head. Excuse me, and I couldn't explain that aura around the head.
On Facebook, you wrote to me, it was a shadow being on a stump. As we pulled in, it moved off the stump. Then that night, something invisible messed with us for about 4 hours. Even with the light on, we could hear it messing with the stuff on the table and hear it walking, but we couldn't see a thing.
Right. Yeah, and then right after that, we fell asleep. Like, nobody falls asleep when there's something you don't know what's going on outside. You're on red alert, you know? You just don't go to sleep. I mean, I usually don't sleep anyways, but it was, I don't know. That was weird for me.
Well, you also wrote, my camera started messing up as I was shooting the stump. It got all pixelated, so that's all I could get.
Right.
But I watched as it moved across the stump and around to the back of it, and it looked like a shadow on the stump itself.
Right. And it actually looked like it, like, kind of dematerialized or became the stump, you know, like sucked into the stump, kind of like. It's hard to describe. And I still don't know really what happened. And I don't know what to say. After 2 times visiting the stump and trying to figure it out with cameras, and we went at the same time and same angles, everything, we did everything, and we thought for sure we were going to debunk it, but we couldn't debunk it. We don't know what it is.
So overall, would I be accurate in saying you went for Sasquatch or Bigfoot? That was your goal, is to try to see if you could come across something like that. And on at least that one night, you came across something entirely different that you hadn't anticipated, and you think that it was that shadow being, which if you look at that, it looks like it could be something similar to, if I wanted to put a label on it, a gray. So
That's what I thought too.
So you're thinking that's more along the line of what was responsible for all the things around you. Did you associate that with being responsible with the trees also somehow?
No, the trees were the Bigfoot. That was them. But I don't know, Like, I don't know their relationship yet. See, that's what I was saying earlier, is that there's more weirdness going on than I ever encountered in one trip. Like, when we go looking for UFOs, really, and alien abduction and stuff like that, and we talk to the people, there's really never a Bigfoot included. And when we're going after Bigfoot, there's no other things. Well, sometimes there's orbs associated with the Bigfoots, you know, in the same area seen, but nobody, you know, there's not stories of the two being together and happening at the same time and stuff.
Yes.
Normal.
Yes, that's the point exactly. That was the first time, essentially, that you've kind of had mixed media, where you were anticipating, you're in the woods, you're going on essentially what you would consider to be a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot adventure, and essentially the last thing that you thought that you would be encountering is anything sort of alien-oriented, and now you've got both types of events kind of massing together in a series of really strange, anomalous things that are going around your tent. And so it's you're talking Bigfoot, potential aliens, shadows. So that really is a mixed situation that you've never encountered before then, if
Right.
I've got it.
Now we're in the second weekend. We go in, set everything up. This time we can record it, and we had an owl. We didn't know what it was at first. It sounded like a game camera. The battery's running out.
Okay.
And so it was just beep, 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 and it was constant. And then all of a sudden it started speeding up, almost a machine gun, beep, 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 real fast. And then it would slow back down. Sometimes it would stop, and then it would restart again. And we thought it was in one spot, and we were talking, okay, that sounds like mechanical. We're going to go find the game camera if it's still beeping tomorrow. But then right after we said that, it started moving around. And then it sounded like there was more than one, and maybe even more than two. And then later, where I thought, well, it sounds like maybe a bird, you know. So I started calling it the bird stuck in reverse.
Okay.
Right? You know how when you put it in reverse, beep, 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 you know, backing up.
Right.
So it was the bird. We called it that, and it was driving us nuts. I mean, it went on for hours and hours and hours. And 1 minute it was way over there, then it was right next to us, then it was on the other side of us, then. I mean, it was just all over the place, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And we've been going in there since 2010. Every Memorial Day, and then all summer long, we make trips in there. We put game cameras up. We have hundreds and thousands of pictures of deer, bear, people, you know, packing things in and out, like, you know. They don't do it anymore, but they're you know, the farmers that farm the smoke.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we've got
those guys.
We've got 2 minutes before the top of the hour. We've got somebody on the phone. So, caller, I'm guessing you have a question for Alan, or you have your own experience to relate. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Simone.
Simone, great to see you.
Well, I hope you can't see me.
Well,
I'm in my play clothes.
You know what I mean. Great to hear you.
Well, you know, hi Alan, and hi chat room.
Hi.
When Alan was talking about being, you know, a little, he didn't use the word scared, but, you know, being a little anxious over the sounds on the outside, and then all of a sudden he went to sleep, it reminded me of something that happened to me about 10, 15 years ago. In my own home. I lived alone at the time, and I had a Doberman Pinscher dog sleeping in the bedroom with me. He snored like a real person, and I'm asleep, totally alone in the house, and I heard someone walking in the house. and walking down the hallway. I heard the footprints. They were kind of heavy. They were walking on the carpet. And I was scared to death because my baseball bat was in the other room. My firearm was in the other room.
That's
and
bad.
all I could think of was, something horrible is going to happen to me. And my heart was racing. And I was afraid to open my eyes. And whatever it was came over and stood by my bed. And I heard something rustle, like either feathers or a fabric. Maybe it could have been fabric. And in my head, I heard a voice say, "Fear not." And then, boom, I was asleep. I mean, I went from my heart racing. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to get raped. I had no idea what was going to happen. Next thing I know, I wake up in the morning. I'm all happy. I'm singing. I'm in the shower. And in the middle of the shower, it struck me. How could I have been so scared and terrified and then just went to sleep?
Right.
Okay, so to you, did it make you feel as though it was, I don't know, for lack of detail, something more than something else? Did you associate it with an alien presence, or what did you most align your thoughts with it being then?
Well, at that time, I had been trying to study, what do you call that? When you sit cross-legged and you relax and you concentrate.
Meditation.
And you think about, yeah, there you go, meditation. And, lining up my chakras. And I had practiced that from reading a book for a couple of weeks. Then my house started feeling weird, like scary, like I was afraid to be in the house, like there was something in the house. And so then I started praying every night. And then one night I had my visitor. And so I kind of took it as more of a religious experience, that my prayers had been answered, because when I was in the shower, I was fully rested. It was like the best sleep I'd ever had, and I didn't have that weird feeling in my house anymore.
Okay.
Well, I think you're 100% correct that it was a religious, a God experience or angel experience, because in the Bible, one of the main things that when an angel appears to someone in the Bible, I mean all throughout the Bible, and they always say, "Fear not." That's one of their words that they say is "fear not." And usually the people fall on the ground, and they can't get up, and they say they're as of like they're dead. But usually, and the other now aliens and stuff like that, they don't do that. I've never heard any abductee ever tell me, it said "fear not."
Folks, we're going to take a break just for a second here. I'm not going to go to a full promo. I just want to remind you guys of this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
So we're listening to Alan Thomas, and Simone has called in. Dave in chat said, "Hey, that's an angel encounter." And that appears to be what you're concluding also.
Well, yeah. That's how I took it. And the sound reminded me of, like I said, either like large feathers, like whenever you go to the zoo, if you've ever been and you're in the eagle or vulture exhibit and they rustle their feathers, or like a heavy fabric. And it was like right next to my bed. I heard it, and I was terrified up until it said, and it was like a deep male voice said, "Fear not." So, but
Simone, let me ask you this: was there something going on in your life at the time where you had sort of a personal necessity to be assuaged or soothed, which is perhaps one of the reasons that it appeared that you were going through some kind of tumultuous time during that incident?
Actually, no. And I don't want to take up all your show tonight because it's really a Sasquatch night. But I was kind of experimenting to see if I could access what they call Akashic records or do soul traveling. So you have to get in the right state of mind to do that. And I think what happened is you have to really know what you're doing or not even go there. And I think I might have opened a door and that's why I was afraid. And so the thing that I needed assuaging was I was afraid to be in my own house. I had every light on in the house. And I had a Doberman Pinscher with me, and there was no one else in the house, but I was afraid. And so that's why I prayed every night.
Dave in chat makes the observation and asks you this, Simone. He says, it was a deep male voice. Was it also a soft male voice? Like a father's voice?
It was. It was very. Yeah, it was soothing. It was. It wasn't a commanding voice. It was very soothing. It was kind of like aloe vera on a sunburn, but my heart was pounding. I was afraid to open my eyes. I was afraid to see what was there right next to my bed.
And so you never did. You never did open your eyes until perhaps later. And so
oh, no.
You can't...
I didn't open my eyes till the next morning when I popped out of bed and jumped in the shower all happy and super rested. And it wasn't until, like when you take a shower and you start thinking. And when it was the middle of my shower, I remembered, wait a minute, what happened? And then I refreshed my memory of what had happened. And it seemed like a really odd experience to be so terrified. I mean, honestly, my heart was like in my throat. I couldn't hardly breathe. But I woke up totally rested, and my house felt totally different. It felt safe again. I never went back to the whole chakra thing. I left that alone.
Okay, one final question for you, Simone. Did you feel that you couldn't open your eyes because you didn't want to open your eyes, or because something was telling you or forcing you to not open your eyes?
It was kind of like, I don't know, I was born and raised in Fresno, and it's super hot in the summer in Fresno. It's like 110, 108 on a regular basis in Fresno, and we only had a swamp cooler. And so if you fall asleep in the afternoon, when you're trying to wake up, it's hard to open your eyes to wake up, but you can hear everything around you, but it's hard to peel your eyes open. It was like that.
Okay. That's also interesting that you, Simone, and Alan Thomas both have experiences in Fresno, California. So
I've had some other experiences, but I want to get off the phone and let other people call in. But I have a feeling, and I don't know, and maybe Alan can speak to it. I think once you've had one type of experience, it kind of opens you up to other experiences, not that you're looking for them, but almost like, it's like driving. You're driving and you see a motorcycle, and pretty soon you're starting to notice all the other motorcycles. It like opens up your third eye or just your mind, and you start seeing other things. Things become more believable. That's what I think is going on, because I've had some interesting things happen in my life. Well, you'll have to do a whole weirdness show at some other time. But anyway, I want to get off the phone, let other people call. Thank you, BZ, and thank you, Alan.
Okay.
Keep doing the great work that you do, and thank you, chat room.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Simone.
And that's funny, Alan, isn't it, that she said that, because at the beginning of the show, the first hour, I said, hey, once you've experienced an event or a series of events, does that not make you a little bit more susceptible to experiences continuing like that? And she just confirmed that. Alan Thomas. How weird is that?
I'm really well versed in demons and stuff like that. That's one of my specialties, is going to haunted houses or demon possession things and kicking the old devil out of there and the demons out of there. In fact, so much so that I get attacked on the street and the people don't know me. They're just demonic. And I'll be walking down the street, and all of a sudden these people come at me and want to know what my credentials are and what church am I with, and they want me to get away from there. I mean, it's weird, really weird.
Wow. Okay. Now, for the folks that are listening, and if you don't happen to be in the chat room, and I would highly recommend, thanks for the call, Simone. Thank you very much. I forgot my manners there just for a second. My mother taught me better than that. I put the number in the chat room, and folks, I always ask that if you're in YouTube chat or Facebook chat, and I miss a lot of chatting, please, I beseech thee, come over to shrmedia.com. Great people in the chat room. Come and partake of the chat room at shrmedia.com. In the chat room, I've published the number if you want to call. And that's exactly what Simone just did. It's area code 209-284-3210. 209-284-3210. And I hate it when hosts rattle off a number and you don't have a pencil or a pen, you can't write it down, and damn it, why didn't he mention the number again? Well, come to the chat room. The number's in the chat room, and I'll say it again, slower if you want to go grab an instrument of writing or something like that. Call in with your experiences, 209-284-3210. 209-284-3210. We won't laugh. We take you very seriously. Alan has had a plethora of experiences. I've had some. Simone just regaled us with a tale. I'm as far as you're concerned, Alan. We're rolling with this topic. If you don't mind, I'd like to continue, and I think everybody in the chat room is having a good time. I think I'm going to forego politics until we just run out of things to say. And tonight, I get the funny feeling we're not going to run out of things to say regarding Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the paranormal, UFOs, etc.
Right. That was a great call.
But
great story.
Yeah, it's interesting because it confirmed what I was saying at the first hour, is that my guess would be there will always, and I'd like your opinion on this, there are always people that will doubt whatever it is that you say, and I was squarely into that category. I didn't believe in any of this, what I considered to be crap.
Right.
Until about, the late 90s, when I happened to see what I believed was a UFO in the San Diego area. And once I saw that, I come from a military background, from an aviation background. I grew up in the military. I lived on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base itself is supposed to be the home of various aliens and alien craft, and I lived on the base. But what I saw in the late 90s in San Diego, which is, San Diego, if you don't know, is rife with military bases. Various fleets dock there. There's North Island Naval Air Station. There's a Marine base and airfield, Lindbergh Field. The military has a heavy presence in San Diego and the harbor in that area. And the UFO that I saw in the skies exhibited back in the 90s absolutely non-ballistic movements. It would move in a square fashion. And ballistically speaking, things don't do that. If they're moving at a rate, they tend to arc because of the laws of physics. I started to come around. Then I had my sort of small young Sasquatch experience. Those are basically the two major ones that I've had. But there are people that, unless they've experienced something themselves, I bet you still have people that come up to you, Alan Thomas, and say, no, you are full of crap and I don't believe a thing you say.
Oh, I get called out all the time on my YouTube channel and my Facebook and family and friends, and I've been able to turn some of them just by going camping with them, bringing them camping. And then, like some of them have had an absolute, like the Bigfoot stepped out, stared in their face, and then stepped back behind the tree and disappeared again. And then they don't go camping anymore. Yeah, but they don't ever call me out either. It's pretty good. And then we had a few where the Bigfoot roared like King Kong from a mile away about, and it was rattling our insides, vibrating us. And those people didn't even have to see it. They just heard it and knew, they grew up with me camping and hunting and fishing and all that, and they never heard anything like that in their life. And changed their life, just that, just the sound.
The odd thing is I have a similar experience, not with anything that I didn't know what it was, but I can relate to that. I was in the Lion House at the San Francisco Zoo at the time during feeding, when they bring in literally the wheelbarrow full of meat, and the lions in an enclosed concrete building get all fired up, and they start to literally roar in that huge lion house. A lion roaring 20 feet away from you, it literally shakes your lungs and you feel vibrations in your entire body. That's how loud it was, and my guess would be that's what you experienced. Something, a noise that marked and that profound.
And we were calling it King Kong, because it sounded like the King Kong movie Kong.
Right.
That's what it sounded like. And about every 30 seconds it was roaring, and it was coming at us. And, after the fourth or fifth roar, people were starting to swear, and we were getting out of there, But only, wow, it was amazing. But yeah, it was vibrating us and all that. In fact, that was the first thing we were thinking was, could that be a cougar or a bear, roaring? But then when it was traveling, so fast through thick woods coming at us, we knew it wasn't a bear or a cat. It was King Kong coming. He was coming for us. So we made out of there as fast as we could.
Did it seem like it was aiming directly at you, and did you feel as though you were in a serious threat? Because I've heard stories from some people say that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, they're not necessarily harmful, all the way to people saying, well, yeah, you don't want to go out of your way to mess with them. Do we have any evidence that you know of, Alan Thomas, where a Bigfoot, Sasquatch has been responsible for the death of a human in some fashion?
In history, yeah. I think one of the presidents wrote about that, where some people that was on his team got attacked and one of them was killed. And they split up. They were trackers. And there's several stories of that. And then the Indians talk about how they like to eat babies. And that's how they had a Bigfoot war around maybe between 200 and 700 years ago. I don't even think they know exactly, how many hundreds of years, but the story's been passed down. And actually the area that we go in to, that we call the spot, I found out recently, maybe a couple of years ago, from one of my friends that's a Native American medicine man, that they made, after the Bigfoot war, they made an agreement that if the Indians stayed in their area and the Bigfoot stayed in their area, then they would not have a war anymore, and the Bigfoot would quit taking the babies and young women. And so long as they went by that. And then when I was telling him where we were going, he was like, you can't go there because that's the place. That is one of the areas that is the Sasquatch or Bigfoot area. And they don't go there because of a treaty that they made a long time ago with they call them the ancient giant people. Yeah.
So you had 2 weekends of this. You have photographs that you sent me, photographs that I showed people that are watching on video. And then were there any more experiences that you encountered during the past weekend and the weekend before that to indicate that, not only did we see apparent shadow creatures and evidence of maybe Bigfoot pushing a tree, was there anything else that you did or encountered during your trip?
Yeah, the last night we were there at at the camp last weekend, or the second weekend, the last one I've been there. We had the headset on, and we were trying to identify the owl. Okay. Now, this is the second owl in 5 or 6 years. There was another couple of 2 or 3 owls that were messing with us, circling us about 4 years ago. And they turned out, I have friends that are game wardens and stuff like that. And I played the audio, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a barred owl. And then they said that, then it turned into a chimp. About 2 hours into the recording, it turned into a monkey. But he told me that the barred owl is Northern California, Oregon, Washington. It just barely comes into the northern part of California. It is not down here. So he was tripping out that we recorded a barred owl way down, 700 or 800 miles from their actual range. So he thought that was strange. So now this little owl, we found out this was an owl that was making the beep noise. And again,
oh, really?
And its range is also way up north, way up Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, all that way up there. There's none down here. So that was weird. Again, here we are, Well, I wanted him to record it so that I could come home and I can find the call and I can try to identify whatever it was, if it was a bird or a game camera beeping, whatever it was, I was going to try to identify it. Identified it as the owl. We recorded it. So while we're doing that, all of a sudden I was hearing a wood knock in the distance. And in another one answering it that was even further away that didn't get recorded. And if it did, we probably have to turn it way up and blast our eardrums out to hear it. And now when the Bigfoot knocks, they usually only knock a couple of times. It's like here I am, you know what I mean? Something like that. That's how I interpret the knock is they knock and then another one will knock somewhere, and maybe you might get 4 knocks at the most all night. And then you'll start hearing the audibles. They'll do the audible thing. Well, this night there was at least 20 knocks in 15 minutes. And
wow.
They were knocking back and forth. Yeah, the most I ever heard, and we recorded it. And I don't have the recording though, but I can get copies of it as they put them on the computer, download them to the computer and stuff.
Okay, in chat, Simone asked, when you encounter these, do you smell them? Does a sense of smell, is it pervasive when you have an idea that a Bigfoot or Sasquatch is present?
And I've talked to people that have, and I've never smelled one. I mean, I've been around them a lot and seen them, but I never smelled them. And I mean, I've been real close to them. On the Thule Reservation at night, I came out of the tent, and there was one that was as wide as a pickup truck. And it was tall and big, and it was a full moon, and it was standing in the shadow of an oak tree facing me. And I went out to relieve myself, and I looked up, and here's this big, massive shadow rocking back and forth in front of me, probably about 20 feet in front of me. And I started backing up. I peed all over my shoes. I was getting the heck out of there. And then I was thinking, oh my God, the 44 Magnum I have is not big enough.
Yeah.
The tent that's when I came up with the sack lunch, even though it was an 8 or 10 man tent. It was, I'm going to go climb in a sack lunch, this is really safe. And my little pea shooter isn't big enough to take it out. I may be able to kill it, but it's going to run 50 miles first before it falls down. You know what I mean? Those kind of thoughts, that scared the you-know-what. But I've never smelled one, never, ever.
Okay.
That I know of.
Simone also asks in chat, when you were in the area, or since that area seems to be pretty active in terms of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, have you ever seen bent trees or any indicator like that?
Yeah, in fact, I was telling these guys, since the trees are all dead, there's a lot more trees down in that area than there ever was, okay? But, growing up in Yosemite and camping and hunting all the time as a kid, I've been in a lot of woods, up and down the state of California, and I never, in this little valley, I never seen so much destruction. I mean, there's trees and X's where they take, big, huge telephone pole-sized trees and place them like an X. And they even build these blinds, is what I think they are. I think they're blinds where they can sit behind it and ambush deer and game and stuff like that. But they do, and this place is total destruction. I've never been in some woods that was that destroyed. Then I also made another observation this last weekend that I never really thought about. Maybe it's because there's less trees than, a lot of them have been brought down so you can see more trees, more forest. Have you ever been to the mystery spot?
Yes.
In California?
Yes, I have.
You'll see, okay, now the tree will grow straight up, but then there'll be like a hook in it. And then, it'll hook over and then it'll grow straight up again. If you're over at the mystery spot, there's like lots of them around that area where the trees have a hook.
Yes, and I have a lot of those up by me because I'm about the 4,000-foot level in the Sierra Nevada mountains off of Interstate 80. Now, I can tell you what that means to me, Alan Thomas. I'm going to let you tell you what that means to you. What I was told is that in the formative years of a tree, essentially what that means is that someone stepped on that tree when it was a young tree and somehow damaged it, and it continued to grow, but the bend that's in it is when it was either stepped on or damaged, and the tree continued to grow and get larger.
Wow, okay. Well, there's hundreds of them in the spot where we go where there's these Bigfoots. I wonder if they were stepping on them. I don't know, but it's like way more than usually you see one here or there in the forest. But this is like dense. They're all over the place. Everywhere you look, you see one.
Okay.
And that to me that was strange. I didn't know what it meant or anything. I just knew that there was an abnormal amount of those in this area.
And
just
apparently,
like at the mystery spot, there's lots of them too, like that.
And apparently it doesn't kill the tree. The tree just continues to grow, gets larger, etc., unless it was so small that it really did kill the tree. Apparently we've got somebody on the phone. Go ahead, caller. I think this is Mike. Go ahead.
Hello, BZ.
Howdy, Mike. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fine. I've got two stories for you.
Okay.
One is a Bigfoot story that happened to a friend of mine. He went off to bow hunt one day, and you know what hunters do. They'll go out early in the morning and sit on a tree stand or sit in the field and wait for whatever deer that's going to come up to come up. So he's waiting for a deer, and he sees a deer, shoots the bow, hits the deer in the neck, and the deer jumps off to go bleed out. Well, he goes to track the deer, and he follows the blood, as hunters will want to do, So he follows the blood, and when he gets to where the deer is supposed to be, there's the antlers, there's the arrow, which is an aluminum arrow, and there's the bones. No meat, no deer. Now, what could eat all that meat in one sitting, and what's smart enough to know not to eat an aluminum arrow,
Aluminum is not one of the four major food groups. That much I do know.
Right. And so that then there's that. Now my story is, and this happened in a time that I was all of 12 years old. This is the early '80s, and I was probably out at a time out of the house at a time at that age at what probably should have been. I should have been in bed at the time. In other words, you get the drift what I'm saying, right?
Right.
Late at night, about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, stuff like that. So I'm sitting in a field, and at the time we were surrounded by sugar cane fields. I'm looking up and I see basically what amounts to an object that's in the shape. If you've ever seen the movie The Flight of the Navigator, and it's kind of that type of shape. Now, what happens next is this object morphs and turns into a different shape, like a squarish type, rectangular type shape, and then shoots straight up in the air and it's gone.
Okay. And
so
you're thinking it was a UFO of some sort?
I don't know any airplane or any helicopter that can do that at the speed at which it looked like it was doing. And look, I've got bad eyes, I've got different things that are wrong with me, but I don't know anything that could, at the time, they could do that,
We're going to take this just a moment for this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
In lieu of a commercial or a promo. So Mike, did you associate that with some kind of a UFO, or did you get the feeling that, I don't know, something different was at play?
Well, one, we're not, where I'm located in Louisiana, we're nowhere near, the nearest base is up in Shreveport, Louisiana. So It's not a military. I wouldn't have associated with a military. We're not even near an airport. So there's that. So, I mean, that's the nearest airfield would be a place where, crop dusters take off, that type of thing. So it's not something that would be coming from an airport or an air base. So, I mean, I don't know what I'm associating. I'm just saying it's something that did something that did two things, changed in a different shape, and then did something that a normal airplane, I mean, you see these vertical takeoff and landing planes, but this was way past that,
Okay, Alan Thomas. Mike lives in Louisiana. To your knowledge, is Louisiana known for anything kind of similar to that, or does Louisiana stick out in your mind for any particular phenomenon?
Yeah, the swamp ape, or whatever they call it, and UFOs. But the UFOs are everywhere. I mean, all over. All the states have them. But Louisiana has a lot of UFOs all around that, like the Gulf area. There's reports all up and down the whole area. I agree with them that I kind of seen something like that too. I actually followed a box. It was like a square. First I thought it was a trash bag flying, and then it squared up into a square, and I was trying to keep up with it with my car, and then all of a sudden it stepped on the gas and went out of the orbit like in a second. It was gone.
Mike Simone in chat says, hey, do you have any stories of dog men in Louisiana, or are you aware of what dog men are, or have you heard stories like that in your area?
The closest thing like that would be somewhere in Mississippi.
Okay.
Now we have a lot of these old antebellum homes that they say are haunted, and they're out in the woods, and the people who own them have said, yeah, we've seen like things that could be considered Bigfoot type things, that type of thing.
Rougarou.
So
Alan, what was that?
The Rougarou. They call it the Rougarou or something like that.
Okay. Is that a Bigfoot-oriented type creature, kind of like a Bigfoot?
Yeah, and kind of like a dog man, too. And they run in packs. There's some stories of those things running in packs.
Right. So that's what I've heard around these like old antebellum homes that are out in the middle of nowhere and maybe in the swamp somewhere, and you've got this thing that looks like you said, a dog man or a rootaroo or whatever it is, and they just can't explain it. It shows up. They may see it, for a brief second, and then it's gone.
Okay. All right. Well, Mike, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. If you have, thanks for calling Simone, and thanks for calling Mike. I greatly appreciate that. Folks, if you have your own experiences, give us a call. You don't have to be in the chat room at the very second. You can be listening to us on any of the other chat rooms, but I'm going to give you the phone number again. If you're interested in calling, 209-284-3210. 209-284-3210. Alan Thomas, wood knocking. The area that you go to is famous for being an area that's proscribed against people because it's a very active Sasquatch area, and certain Native Americans are telling you something similar to, when you go there, you need to be very, very, very cautious.
Well, they told me that I'm breaking the treaty that they made, because that's one of the areas that the treaty says they don't go. In fact, we were talking to one of the guys that was with us has been going in the area for 20-something years, and he met this guy at the store, and he asked everybody, hey, have you ever seen or heard of Bigfoots around here? And the guy said, no, he didn't know about Bigfoot, but he said that it's been said that a orangutan got away and is roaming the woods. That's what he said.
Yeah,
but then if you look on YouTube, there's actually a video of what looks like a giant orangutan running through Sequoia National Park. I mean, it's massive, big, and kind of looks like that, but it isn't an orangutan. Orangutans don't run like this thing. But it was a good one. I thought it was pretty funny.
You have a Native American background, and I know that you have on your various videos, you tell Native American stories, like bedtime stories. Mm-hmm. So because of the other people that have spoken to you, Native Americans, that the area that you're going to, you might be compromising a treaty of sorts. Do you think that, how do I say this kindly? Do you think you're placing yourself or other people a little bit in jeopardy, or that there's an issue with that? Or do you feel sufficiently comfortable going into that area that you can handle yourself, you can take care of things as required?
Well, after seeing the first Bigfoot, and that was outside of Yosemite National Park, towards the wilderness area, and no roads or anything,
mm-hmm.
I've never felt comfortable in the woods ever since. I'm scared all the time.
Okay.
And there isn't enough guns or big enough guns to make me feel comfortable. I need a tank or something, and then even then they might be able to tip it over. I don't know. I mean, they're big dudes. And you have to see one, I guess, to appreciate, that part.
Do you kind of feel like you're putting either yourself or the Native Americans that cut the deal in the first place, that you're kind of placing them in jeopardy by visiting? Or do you feel that I go there because I know that I'm going to always be the recipient of some kind of activity, and that's part of my job, is trying to figure out what's going on out in the woods in these places?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my tribe that made the agreement. It was their tribe.
Okay.
And I think they know the difference. I think these things know the difference. They know that they didn't sign a treaty with us, and then we go there specifically because every single time we go, something happens. And just recently, really weird stuff, but basically it's been all Bigfoot until just the last couple of weekends
with the shadow creatures that you saw.
Right.
Do you think, and when you go there, my guess would be attitude is everything, and I'm going to ask your opinion on that. There's some kind of a show, and I won't even name it because I probably don't remember the name of the show, but it pisses me off. I'll say it. It's either called like Bigfoot Hunters or something like that, where it's a bunch of guys with rifles who apparently their only goal is to go out and kill a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. Number one, I find that reprehensible. Number two, it's just, to me, the show is so terribly contrived. But number three, my guess would be, if you find an area that's active, that Bigfoot or Sasquatch has a fairly good idea and can attune to whether or not you mean them harm. Would that be correct?
Well, according to my tribe, which is over by Louisiana, that's where they were. And then they took, the Cherokee tribe. They call it Sul-Kalu.
Okay.
And it can read your mind. It knows what you're thinking. So, I mean, that's what they say. And then if you go with one of them, like say you make friends with one and he's nice to you for some reason, and you go to where he lives and you go into the mountain where they live, they say they live inside the mountain. When you come out, there is a time warp thing. Like you think you were in there for an hour, and when you come out, you're in there 3 months. And there's lots of stories of that, and not just with the Cherokee, but a lot of tribes. And that goes with the little people too. You go in with the little, kind of like Rip Van Winkle. You remember that story where he fell asleep?
Yes.
And he slept. Well, he actually was hanging out with the little people. And when they let him out and he woke up, it was years. All his family was gone. Everybody wondered where he went. That's how it happens. That is the same thing happens still today. It's kind of weird.
When you go into these areas, Alan Thomas, do you feel... I know that you can handle yourself in the woods, and I know that you've told me that you're very aware of your surroundings. But when you've been in the woods in that area or another area, how do I quite say this properly? Have all the hairs stood up on the back of your head, and you get an immediate sense of critical danger right here, right now, and you got to get the hell out?
Yep. I've even ran, and I didn't even know what I was running from. Ran for a mile until I started rationalizing with myself, like, okay, so if it was going to get me already, it would have got me, right? I mean, here I am running for my life, and I don't even know where I'm running for my life from. And then I seen your post about the 458. My rifle of choice that I was packing around was a a Weatherby 300 Mark V.
Nice.
It was beautiful. Yeah, that was the one I like. I bought it for bear and elk and stuff like that. But after I seen Bigfoot, that was the one I had for choice. Hopefully I can like shoot his legs out from under him or something.
When you go to that area that you frequent, and my guess would be you're going to continue to go back there because it's so active, and you're waiting to see if you're going to, if more will be revealed to you. And I know that your senses are on high, they're on alert there. But when you go in those areas, do you ever get the feeling of being threatened, or are you just very sensitive about everything that's going on around you? In other words, do you feel a sense of threat when you go into those areas as though absolutely positively no one wants you there?
Sometimes we'll go in there and it's peaceful and everything's cool, and there'll be moments or times, where all of a sudden the whole, atmosphere, the whole atmosphere changes, and it's dread, total dread, and I'm not the only one that feels it sometimes. And it'll last for a little while, and then it'll go away. And sometimes I'll wander away from camp a little ways, and I can still see the camp. I'm not going to wander too far, because you'll wind up in a missing 411 book. But I'll wander off a little bit, and I'll get a little ways and not really thinking, just looking around and not really paying attention. All of a sudden, it's like, you know what, you're going to die. You better get back to the tent, back to the camp with the people. And you move very, very quickly. And it stays with you a little while, even after you get back to the camp. It's a weird thing. And it's happened to all of us that go in there. Just you all of a sudden you feel like dread, like something really bad's going to happen, but it doesn't stay with you the whole time.
Alan Thomas, do you think it would be fair to say that Sasquatch, Bigfoot, is much like human beings in terms of there's one over here that's very conciliatory and understanding and low-key, and then with a given area, within a given area, or perhaps within a given troop, there are individuals who can tend more towards anger or violence? In other words, would it be accurate to say that just like humans, each one of these is completely different?
Yeah, I agree. And I also think it boils down to like being shot at. You know what I mean? Where they're wild, first of all, so you have to take that into account. They're wild.
Yes.
So and they're the apex predator. I don't care what anybody says. Like I always considered myself the apex predator. Lugging around a 300 Weatherby, and a 45 or a 44 Magnum on my side. I figured I was the apex predator till I ran into these things, and then now have seen them and how fast they run and how big they are, and I started realizing I'm just a popcorn fart in the woods. I'm nothing. This thing could have a pet bear or a pet cougar, full size, big, massive, and control it. And I found tracks of, that suggest that might be the case, that they do have pets, like bear pets and cougar pets, full size, full grown.
I don't know if are you watching the chat room right now? And the reason I'm asking is because Dave Milner in chat just said, are they as intelligent as the gorilla in a Cali zoo who had a pet kitten and cried when the kitten was run over by a car?
Yeah, they are. In fact, they'll mimic a kitten. On the Thule reservation, we were up there, and there was one mimicking a kitten. And we stayed 2 days, and we had some children with us. And the children, you know, they hear a kitten, they want to go find it.
Right.
And we were telling them, no, you know, there is no kitten. And actually, it was an old forest. It was giant redwoods like at Sequoia or Yosemite, the giant sequoias.
Mm-hmm.
They have that on their reservation, and they have a couple little cabins up there. And we stayed up there a couple of weekends, and something happened, and I don't know what, but something happened with the Sasquatch, and there was a dead guy. Okay, and I never got the straight story.
A human?
The guy was carrying a 30-06, and we met the people, and then the next time we were going to go up the next weekend, and we got told nobody's going up there again. You know, that isn't tribal. So that was the last time. But I was told, I mean, I have family that live on the res there, and they told me that one of them, a guy got a video, the kitten was out there behind the cabin, and they went back there and they had their cell phone going recording, and when they got to the tree, a little small tree that was kind of down the hill, they got there, and then the kitten shut up, you know, and as they moved more towards the tree, all of a sudden this 10-foot tall Bigfoot just stands up and steps out, and they got it on video. They won't show me the video, but they've showed the tribal elders and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know everything about them. I wish I did, you know. All I know is what I've been told and some of the things that I've experienced, and that's it. I don't think anybody really knows at all. They're so elusive. It's really, that's what makes it so fun, really, to go out there, is to learn.
Well, each time you go out there, it's a new adventure, and you experience something different. And as you said from the beginning of the show, from the very first hour, it seems like things are ramping up in terms of intensity in the paranormal, unexplained, UFO, Bigfoot, Sasquatch world. My assumption would be you're going to continue to go back to this area, and of course I'm not going to ask you where this is, because number one, that would be wrong. Number two, it's your area, and number three, probably the corollary to that is you don't want a lot of dumb people doing stupid things in a situation where you could potentially encounter a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. So the cautionary tale is, Alan Thomas, wouldn't you say that something like that is best left to someone like yourself who has a lot of experience in the area, in the entire genre, and knows when to say when and just leave? Would that be accurate? In other words, you don't want wherever it is that you go packed with people.
Well, the most things that I worry about, if you go on the web and type it in, they have a map that David Paulides put together, and he wrote the Missing 411 books about all the missing people. Hundreds of thousands of people go missing in the woods, and there's actually hot spots, like areas where more people go missing than anywhere else.
Okay.
And Yosemite is the number one place. And I've interviewed I've interviewed a couple of rangers from there that worked at the gate and other places, and they said as they were working every day, they wondered which one of these are not going home, and they won't find. They just disappear. And I mean, that's all up and down. I mean, and that's when people say, well, you never hear stories of Bigfoot attacking anyone. Well, if you get taken away and you're at dinner and they leave your bones at 13,000 feet somewhere under a rock, then nobody's going to find you. And there's not going to be, unless somebody sees it, but they're really good at avoiding people. And they take people, like when you hear the stories of people that go missing, it's surgically done, almost like planned. There'll be a group of people, one starts kind of wandering off or gets ahead of everybody or lags behind, and then that person disappears. And they never see him again, and they never find him either. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories like that. In the first Missing 411 book, I was reading it. We interviewed David Paulides, and he gave me a book to read so that I could, ask good questions. And I got in there about 5 chapters, and then there's my 7th and 8th grade teacher in there, a lieutenant colonel, a lieutenant colonel with and he was, I couldn't believe it. And he was in the Missing 411 book. He was probably 7 miles from where I saw Bigfoot and disappeared. And they found his car, his fishing satchel. He was going fishing, and that's it. Never found him. And the squadron went up looking for him. They flew all over the place up there. He was actually a pilot in the National Guard here. And they looked and looked and looked and looked for a couple of years, and they never found him. Never, just his satchel is, you put the fish in when you catch it, and his car. That's it.
It's interesting that you mentioned Missing 411. I didn't know what you were talking about. You mentioned a book. So I just went to the internet on my favorite search engine, and I found Missing 411, and it says it's a video. You can go to, say Amazon or something like that, and it's a video. It gets about 4 out of 5 stars. It's an hour and a half long, made in 2017. It says it's based on the book series written by David Paulides, Paulides. Missing 411 chronicles the unsolved yet eerily similar disappearances of 5 children in the wilds of North America across multiple decades. And apparently there are a whole bunch of other linked videos to this, like Terror from the Skies, Vanished Bigfoot, Bigfoot Hunters. There's a lot of Sasquatch videos that are aligned with this. And that's very interesting. And then when I read this as I was listening to you, I also remembered a story or a TV show that I saw about 2 months ago indicating that Alaska and around Anchorage, or that area, is one of the most deadly, active, whatever word you want to apply to that, in terms of missing persons, missing persons. Well, maybe they were pissing, but people go to Alaska around Anchorage, and then they disappear, and they've never heard or found those people again. So from what we know, Alan Thomas, is I would expect Alaska would logically be a very active area for Sasquatch as well. Yeah.
In fact, before we go, I want to, there's a video. I don't know what the name of it is. Okay. But only people can Google search it or go on YouTube and search it's a video of Bigfoot or something, on 2 legs, pulling up trees and running with them. And it pulls it out of the ground, living trees, pulls it right out of the ground and starts running. And with the tree vertical, right, running away. And that reminds that what your Alaska thing reminded me of that, because there's an island over in the Alaska somewhere, and something over there pulls the trees, rips them right out of the ground, turns them upside down, and stabs them straight back down in the ground again. And there's a whole forest of upside down trees where these things have pulled them up and then stuck them back down. And they say they're the Sasquatch. And then I have some friends that are Eskimos over there, and they tell me that they get as big as 24 feet tall.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Uh-huh. That's when I started the thing with Paul Bunyan and the blue ox. Like, these things are coming back, right? That's what I'm getting at. Is it's all the folklore and all that. It's starting to come back, and it's not folklore; it's real, and they're giants. Just like Chef shooting that one giant in the face.
Yeah, which he spoke about once, but I'm not going to try to coax that out of him again.
Right, yeah, he won't talk to me about it either. I mean, he will personally, but he won't go on the air.
Right, exactly, because that was a rather traumatizing experience, and I would certainly understand that. One more thing before we go, Alan Thomas, and I'd like to talk to you about this perhaps the next time we get together on the show. My wife has suggested that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, even the Kandahar Giant, for example, might be members of or
Nephilim.
Linked to families of, yes, exactly, Nephilim.
Yeah.
So I
think so too.
That's perhaps another topic that I'd like to investigate the next time we get together. And of course, anytime that you'd like to come up to Sacramento, I'd love to have you in the studio. Folks,
I might be able to. We're working on. We had money saved, and then my daughter ran into problems, so we're using all the money to bring her and the grandkids to live here. But when she gets here, I think it's like in a few weeks, I'll be able to save up again. Before the summer, I'm going to get up there and be in the studio. I can't wait.
That would be great. That would be absolutely phenomenal. Folks, for the entire 2 hours, you have had, and I have had, the privilege, pleasure, and honor of speaking to Alan Thomas, a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, paranormal, unexplained UFO hunter, researcher, and investigator. And it's been a great, great show. And I want to say thank you ever so kindly for being here tonight. I don't know why it's pinging. I think Alan may have hung up. But in any event, thanks to Alan for being here tonight. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Alan Thomas, it's been phenomenal.
Monsieur! Has it worked?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, BZEP, and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. Thanks to Big Sarge Media for simulcasting my show tonight and all nights. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And Pratt & Whitney Engines. Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be intimately consorting in less than an hour, because it's the end of the week, and hey, I get to do that. Thanks to Alan Thomas for being here for the entire 2 hours. Thanks to everyone for being in chat. Thanks to Simone and Mike for calling. Thanks to you for listening live. Thanks to everyone listening in podcast, to SHR, to Big Sarge Media. Everybody have a great weekend. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night.
and good luck.